Well, okay. We're live on YouTube. 0 people here. Not shocked. I'm going to grab the link right here and drop it in Discord. Yeah, I got it. For those of you that might be watching this later, I do have some productivity juice with me. Going live on YouTube for some reviews and writing motivation. Drop that link right there. Make sure that that's the right link. Actually, let me grab that one instead. There it is. All right. Drop that one on the Facebook machine while I'm at it, just in case we get anybody who's bored. You ever notice, Facebook has always been crappy, but it seems now that they can tell that people are kind of tuned out. Seriously, like every third post in the timeline is somebody responding to a random comment on some piece of crap FM radio page about what was your favorite ice cream in 1986. It's all just stupid. People getting hacked. Anyway, we're 2 minutes into this beast. Decided to take the hat off. My built-in camera on my computer is not great. Wow. Last night's shave is doing well. Not this shave, this shave. All right, so Cowboys and Aliens, Marvel's What If. My plan was to go see Free Guy after work, but decided not to do that tonight anyway. I'm going to go see it tomorrow. But I got to get up super early tomorrow for my shift, so I'll catch the movie afterward. Anyway, Cowboys and Aliens. I've got a list of DVDs that I check out from the library every once in a while, and even if it's a movie that I've seen. I remembered enjoying that one. I watched it with my brothers, and my little brother is like, "It's not great. It's pretty watchable." And I watched it, and it didn't exactly knock my socks off, but I enjoyed it. Thought it was fine. And after rewatching it just this week, it made me think of, I think it was Honest Trailers talking about one of the recent Predator reboot sequel things or whatever, trying to give a backstory to the Predator and explaining where they come from, why they do what they do, and blah, blah, blah. And he's like, why do we need to overdevelop this world? Why do we need to constantly try to expand this plot when the 80s movie with Schwarzenegger and Carl Weathers and I almost said Ace Ventura, whatever, Jesse Ventura. I knew it wasn't Billy Ventura. That movie was fine. It started out as a military movie. It kind of switched into an alien horror movie, but it transitioned pretty seamlessly. It worked really well. And it's one of those movies that everybody talks about, but nobody really replicates with any success. And Honest Trailers was like, why does this have to be over-defined or over-explained? What's wrong with the plot being monster fights badasses? That's pretty accurate. So the movie Cowboys and Aliens, it's like that. You've got a really good cast. The big names in it are, obviously Daniel Craig and Harrison Ford. And then, next tier down, you've got, I guess the big 3 headliners are those 2 guys and Olivia Wilde. She plays the female lead. Clancy Brown is in it. Sam Rockwell's in it. You probably get Walton Goggins is in it. I think he was in Justified. He was also in the second Ant-Man movie. It's one of those guys. He's got kind of a hard face to look at, but if you saw his face, you'd recognize him. but it was basically that. It kind of starts out with this amnesiac cowboy wakes up in the desert. He's got this weird cuff on his wrist that's metal. He can't get it off. Uh, some passersby try to capture him because they figure that with the wrist cuff and stuff that he's probably a runaway convict and that he's got a bounty on him. But he beats the crap out of all three of them. Naturally, goes to town. He can't remember anything. Can't even remember his own name. When he meets Clancy Brown, he's like, "You don't know your name. You don't know where you're from. What do you know?" And he's like, "English." Like, okay, good answer. We get a little bit of character development, but it's just enough to really get a sense of who this guy was before his memory got wiped. And then the aliens start showing up, and interesting stuff starts happening. Um, they meet the Olivia Wilde character. He's trying to figure out what her deal is. She's I think her character's name was Ella. And spoiler alert, if you haven't seen it, she's not from around here. But basically, there are these aliens that have shown up to the Old West, 1870s, and they're capturing people and they're stealing gold, and nobody knows why. And that's it. Like, you don't need too much more extensive of a backstory than that. This movie was directed by Jon Favreau. It was adapted from a graphic novel that came out about 5 years before the movie. So 2011 for the movie, 2006 for the book. I checked out the comic from the library. I haven't read it yet, but I was interested in seeing it. And when it was all said and done, there were some action set pieces. There were some semi-predictable battle scenes going on, and some cool stuff that happened at the end. It's a movie where you got what you expected. You were entertained along the way. There were maybe, if you hadn't seen it going into it, there were a couple of reveals. But other than that, it was just a fun, cool Western directed by Jon Favreau. You can kind of see hints of Cowboys and Aliens in The Mandalorian now that I think about it. He's got a good feel for that, for telling that kind of story. If I was going to complain about anything in that movie, I'd say there's a scene about halfway through where a bunch of cowboys get a posse together to go check these aliens out and figure out why they're capturing our people or whatever. And while they're walking through, I think it's New Mexico. They mentioned Santa Fe a few times. This rainstorm comes along and they see a gigantic ferry, big old boat that they say it's like, it's too big for any water source that's within 500 miles of here, and it's upside down. I guess you're given to think that the aliens picked it up, moved it, and dropped it. Kind of unclear as to why. We never really get an answer. On the one hand, it's like it would have been kind of cool to understand that a little bit better, because that's the kind of thing that J.J. Abrams might just drop into a movie. Like, wouldn't it be cool if, and then never explain why? You're meant to extrapolate certain things from the mystery of this story. But I feel like that one, you have to kind of extrapolate a few steps beyond, what you would for the rest of it. So anyway, kind of running long on this analysis of it, but it was a good movie. If you've seen it, it's probably better than you remember. Check that one out. And that's kind of what makes me want to segue into Free Guy. Is that one, for all intents and purposes, like it looks like a pretty easy to understand movie, a pretty straightforward one. A video game character becomes self-aware and starts fighting back against the game, but it's done in a comedy way. But other than Ryan Reynolds and Taika Waititi, the Korg guy, and Joe Keery, the Stranger Things guy, and I guess Jodie Comer is in a TV show that's popular in Britain, but I've never looked it up. These aren't people that are playing characters that are tied to another big property or that are adapted from something else that's popular. Like, after 10, 11, 12 years of Marvel movies and, now DC trying to do catch up and not doing it very well, we're sitting here saying like, oh, we want original action movies again. There is one, and that trailer looks really good, and I'm going to go see it. It's the kind of thing that I want to support. Cowboys and Aliens, I missed it in the theater. I don't think it was a box office success, but both times that I've watched it, I thought it was really good. It's okay if a story isn't as super deep and riddled with plot twists or whatever. It's okay if a story just entertains you and has a cool setting and cool looking characters and a nice aesthetic to it, and it's enjoyable. That's fine. In a sense, that's why I write a lot of what I write. Not that I specifically set out to write something shallow, but the flip side of it is, like, I understand that I'm writing genre pieces. I'm not trying to redefine every single little thing. With every story that I do want it to stand out. I do want it to fit in, but I'm not going to try so hard to reinvent the wheel that I never get off of the ground. I've got to launch at some point. As for my 2 cents on Marvel's What If, they've done 3 shows this year that weren't very good. I haven't finished Loki. I got to the end of episode 3 and I'm like, this is stupid. They have no idea what they're doing. Tuned into What If though, because the commercial for that one looked good, and it was the episode where they were doing what if Peggy Carter had gotten the serum instead of Steve Rogers, and I figured they would have some kind of contrivance for it. Well, it was actually kind of interesting. Basically, the German guy who was there to sabotage the whole thing, he jumped the gun and shot some people and blew stuff up before Steve got the serum, and so he was injured. He couldn't do it. The scientist got killed, and so to save the experiment and the expense that they had put into it, it's like, we either do this now or the machine powers down, and all this research and stuff has been for nothing. So Peggy's like, shoot, I'm here. She jumps into the machine. One of the other vanilla old bad white guys was like trying to tell Howard Stark to jump into it, and he's like, this isn't what I do. I'm the button pusher. So Peggy gets in there, and the story from there kind of rhymes and follows the same beats as Captain America, the First Avenger. It's just, she's filling the super soldier role. And it's cool to see the role that Steve falls into instead. Howard builds this awesome, Iron Man suit. They call it the Hydra Stomper. I was telling my wife, I'm probably going to get some craft cardboard from Michael's and build an Ironmonger suit for Halloween this year, because I got that Obadiah Stane look down. But after watching that episode last night, I was like, I want to build that one instead. That one looks a lot cooler. Instead of using the Tesseract to study it or whatever, Howard is able to use it to power this early 1940s Iron Man suit, and Steve becomes the pilot. Instead of, well, slight spoiler alert, but whatever. Instead of Bucky dying on the train, Steve dies on the train. It's Marvel. Nobody dies in Marvel except for Uncle Ben. But they save one guy and lose another one instead. But then at the end, they find that he's alive. And instead of Steve Rogers having to crash a plane, it's Peggy having to fight an Eldritch god and push him back through a portal into space. And then 70 years later, when S.H.I.E.L.D. gets its hand on the Tesseract and opens up a portal, Peggy comes out instead of Loki. So I think it was a really inventive way of taking a story that was already, it's established in the Marvel universe. It's 10 years old at this point, as of this summer, and showing the familiar beats, but true to the premise of the show, showing us what if this person had done this instead, and still kind of follows along the same path, but it's different people in different roles. Gary from Nerdrotic on YouTube had a bit harsher of an assessment of it. I've heard a couple of people complain about the animation, saying that it looked cheap. I think it looks fine. I'm wondering if we're already into the era where 2D cell animation is becoming a lost art. I don't think this kind was bad. It was just very obviously drawn on a computer instead of drawn by hand so much, but I thought it was fine. She was too good at the action stuff. She looked, or she was supposed to be better than Steve Rogers at it. I'm going to play devil's advocate and say that they just did it that way because you can do a lot of stuff in animation that isn't as expensive to do as if you were going to do it in real life. That's why, she was up there fighting airplanes and stuff and jumping onto the back of the Hydra Stomper while it was flying and whatever. They were working under a budget with the live action movie in 2011. And, they probably saved all their money for the aerial scenes for the very end with the Valkyrie, where, Steve jumps out onto one of the little fighter jets and takes over it and flies back to the main ship. And, he does plenty of cool stuff too. I understand the concerns with with how Disney is handling the Marvel legacy going forward and how they're just trying to gender swap everything and race swap everything. And I think those concerns are valid. I just don't think that this is as flagrant an example of it. And, I don't trust that their intentions are completely innocent with saying, okay, let's do Captain Carter. And yeah, they basically rebuilt her to look like a man just with Peggy's head. And I was like, if you want an idea of what, a big, powerful, muscular woman looks like while still looking feminine, you could always look at that lady that you fired from The Mandalorian 6 months ago. But that's another story. Anyway, I thought it was fine. It was more enjoyable than the other 3 shows that they've done this year. And that's my 2 cents on that first episode of What If. But anyway, now that we have all that behind us, oh, look, we've got a viewer. Who do we have? Is it going to let me see? Nobody in the chat. It's my first time going live on this channel, I think. My plan was to just kind of leave this on for a while. I'm going to turn on some royalty-free music and go through my writing process to kind of keep me on task. What the heck? Got some chats from my friends here. But I don't expect you guys are going to want to sit in here and watch this entire thing, but this is just so people can kind of dip in and out. And, oh, look, Graham Bradley is live. I know him. Royalty-free epic music. What do we have? If you need powerful, epic, copyright-free music for your videos, hear this. It's only 25 minutes long. Epic Music World. All right. There we go. Whoever you are, viewer, thank you for tuning in. Jump in on the chat and say hi if you'd like. If not, I'm going to be kind of narrating my writing process from here on out as I bring up the manuscript for the Guild of Eldritch Adventurers. I've been writing this one for the last couple of months. And I've released all of the episodes so far on my podcast, the Dreadpenny's Adventure Hour. Let me turn that down. Hope that one's not hitting too loud. Pick back up where you left off on Monday. Oh, I got to update my reading list. Something else that I do. Oh, wow, a little bit farther along than I thought. Already in August, and I've read 5 books. Finished that one. I read Martian Chronicles by Bradbury. And I'm listening to the Spanish version of the Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. Normally with audiobooks, I got to bump it up to like a 1.25 to 1.5 speed. With this one, I've got to take it down to about 0.85. I'm fluent in Spanish, but I'm trying to beef my vocabulary and my speed of comprehension back up to where it was when I was in Spain. And this is a good way to do it. I found like the actual Spanish narration for it, the Castilian Spanish narration for it. Hope that's not too loud coming over the mic. Hey, thanks for the like, whoever you are. See if I can jump in the chat. It won't let me move that around. Sweet. Productivity juice. Blah, blah, blah. Nope, not working. Mic is unmuted. Some friends in there. All right, so that's updated. I don't think I've got anything else going on. Shut up, Kindle. You don't know anything. Why did that turn off? Boo. Turn back on, music. There it is. Don't you? Why does Amazon keep advertising Crocs to me? Making sure that I haven't got my zipper down. Whoopsie. Yeah, boom, boom, boom. Red. Martian Chronicles, Heat. Okay, yeah, those are the ones that I finished recently. So I am up to 57 books on the year. Other productivity juice. Productivity brought to you by the deliciousness of Rosamonte Special Edition Yerba Mate. All right, can close out the reading document. Pop open Draft 4 of the Guild of Eldritch Adventurers. Where did I leave off? They've gotten captured. No, I'm quite stumped, Mr. Morgan. My plan failed and we are in prison, unarmed, doing a war. You must be enjoying this, Glinda said. I'm optimistic. Someone told me recently that the fates will provide or something. So this is kind of interesting. I didn't plan to have the relationship between Hank and Glinda be as antagonistic as it ended up being. In fact, in the original outline for the story, she ended up kind of falling for him, and he was the gentleman keeping her at an arm's length because he was a time traveler, and he just, he knew he was going to have to disappear. And instead, when I had finally gotten to episode 3 where he arrives, I had to do it in such a way that they're immediately suspicious of each other, and that planted that seed that then kind of blossomed, as you've seen if you've listened to the last couple of weeks, the last couple of episodes, that they don't get along well. She's got a much more amenable relationship with Captain Richmond, and he is also a little bit antagonistic towards Hank, more so Hank towards him. And that chapter 5, episode 5, that whole bit really came to a head. That was a conversation between them on the train that I had envisioned for a while. Mainly, I wanted to see what would the conflict between a veteran of the American Revolution and a veteran of the Confederacy look like. And I like the way that it came out. It wasn't meant to be the definitive answer to those questions one way or the other. It was just meant to reflect those two characters, those specific characters. Anyway, now they're in Cuba. Our brave captives are awake, he said in crisp, accented English. Hello, my guest. I am Capitan Velasquez. I find you to be an odd and mismatched band of invaders. Tell me what we're doing in Cuba. You Americans are quite crafty with the spy work. I'm already remembering how I had to narrate Fool Silver, getting the pronunciations down and stuff, trying to remember what it was like hearing Spaniards speak English when I was over in Spain. There weren't that many of them that could. If Spanish is your first language and you try to speak English, it's way harder than the other way around, because Spanish actually makes sense. The first one of you to reveal your purpose here will get water. The rest of you will get shot in the head. Any volunteers? All right, I'm going to crack the seat back a little bit. Let me know if you can't hear me, and I will be checking the chat from time to time. May not be visible. Welcome to live chat. Oh, hey, there it is. What's up, Logan? Logan, my man. Stupid chat wasn't visible this entire time. Logan's my buddy. Logan is a good friend. Met him at LTUE several years ago. He plugged my book Kill the Beast on his blog a few weeks back, months back now, I guess at this point. Analyzing the way that I used French in a book that was written in English. It was set in France. All the characters were French, but I didn't want to constantly be saying something in French and then giving the English translation. And never thought that somebody would do an analysis of that. So that was pretty cool. Thanks, man. I'm going to see if I can set this to pop out chat. You can now pin a message to the top of your live chat for viewers to read. Click any message to pin it. Use the options menu to unpin. We're learning all sorts of fun things. What's up, gang? Sound off when you get here, would you? I will check the chat every few minutes. Click that. Pin message. There we go. Poll. ask a question. You guys are going to like this question. Nice. We'll see if that shows up in the chat. Ask my community. I would really like to be able to get the community functions all all dialed in on this, but I've got to have 1,000 subscribers, and I've been hovering at 820 for weeks now, months now at this point. I think in April it finally tapered off. My channel went on this meteoric rise from like 28 subscribers to 800 more than that, and then it just stopped. I swear YouTube's been like holding the roof down on it. I'm actually doing more videos now, but anyway, big thanks to the Mayflower passengers who have made this channel successful so far. Okay, no, do not open Excel. I don't need Excel right now. Spanish officer shows up. Glinda took another look at it, but now we're ready to answer the captain's request. When Hank cut her off, that water is poison, senor, he said. Did I? See, this is the problem with the last time I went to go write and I actually had time to write was last Wednesday, and like writing in earnest, and maybe it was Monday. Just one of those days where I've been working long in the yard and stuff. And as I said on my podcast, I can do anything else at the computer except for when I sit down to write, and my brain is like. So I got this one out as cohesively as I could, coherently as I could, and then kind of stopped mid-thought and had to shut it all down. And now I'm trying to remember what was the transition going to be from here to there. That water is poison, senor, he said, comma. I didn't even finish the sentence. This is why I don't get anything done. I say this as a guy who hasn't been, publishing podcasts once a week for 3 years now, 2.5 years now, whatever. First one of you to reveal your purpose here will get water, and the rest of you will get shot in the head. Any volunteers? She was able to open her mouth and she went and cut her off. The water is poison, senor, he said, leaning toward the bars. You must not want to waste the bullets, but we're Americans. We're not that stupid. Hank's trying to egg him on. Captain Velasquez. What's he gonna do? Is he gonna roll his eyes, or is he gonna guffaw? Those are kind of two different extremes as far as how his laughter will go, how his reaction will go. Captain Velasquez clicked his tongue. It's a very Spanish gesture. Clicked his tongue and shook his head. So very smart, are we? He took a long, deep draught of the tankard in his hand and held it. Tankard? No, they'd have canteens. For one of his lackeys to refill. Well, I've already been at this for 29 minutes. I've gotten 2 lines of dialogue written here. Do. Men also drank, not for show like their captain had, but to fend off the oppressive heat that wrangled every drop of sweat out of them, that it could. So in my outline here, Spanish officer shows up. He has water, hands it to the guards. Asks the to talk. Taunts them, demands no what's going on. First one targets water. Wow, that looks good, Hank said. How does it taste, though? Captain Velasquez made to say something, only to stop and knit his brow in reply. He leaned forward slightly and pressed a palm to his abdomen, coughing hoarsely with an A. Remember the A, very important. Slightly and hoarsely in the same sentence, death by adverbs. Fighting back a cough in his throat. The cough started to win the fight, and he suddenly dropped the canteen, clutching his gullet with his other hand. His men, briefly confused, were then straight away imitating their captain. And before long, all three uniformed Spaniards were down on their knees, dirtying their trousers in the sand. Velasquez might have tried to ask a question, but it got lost in a violent spray of blood that. Yes, Bobo. You can't see it. This is my dog. My dog, Bobo. What? Do you want puppy lovins? Come here, fatty. Come here. Say hi to the people. Let's see. Where are we at? Can the people see you? Come here, fatty. Come here. Come on. Up, up. There's a good boy. Come on. Come on. Yeah, that's a good boy. Yeah. Like my fatty puppy Bobo. Yeah. And there's our smaller backup dog. Come here, Tiger. Tiger Lily. Come here. Come here. Up, up, up. Yes. The people wants to see the Tiger Lily. You're going to shed and get hair all over me. This is Tiger Lily. She's our adorable little rescue puppy. We've had her for 3 years. Yeah. Yeah, you're so sweet. Okay. No fussy barking. No. Bo? Jeez. Is it possible to chop a dog's balls off twice? Because we got him fixed like forever ago, but he's still tries to get on the other dog whenever he can. Yeah, this is good music. Okay, so 3 uniformed Spaniards were down on their knees, dirtying their trousers in the sand. Velasquez might have tried to ask a question, but it got lost in a violent spray of blood that sent him from his violent spray of blood between his lips, which sent him into a fit of convulsions. Whoa, said Hank. That was a little worse than I was prepared for. A little worse than I was prepared for. The officers were still twitching when Hester stepped around the corner and reached down to relieve Captain Velasquez of his keys. Sorry you had to see that, Miss Glinda, Hester said, noticing Glinda as she shielded her eyes from the sight of three newly dead men on the ground in just a few feet away. All right, so that makes sense as far as flow goes, but let me check the outline here and make sure that it kind of fits the action, the pulse, the rhythm of it. Not meant to be analyzed. Just saw a message from Logan. Rewound to the beginning. Cowboys and Aliens is indeed an excellent movie, not meant to be analyzed too deeply. Yeah, it's. I think in the last 10 years since that movie came out, it's become a lot more popular to do movie analysis channels on YouTube and on do more movie blogging on the internet. We've definitely just become a more internet centric society in the last decade. And I think we're used to people overanalyzing the heck out of everything instead of just having fun. I was briefly reminded of Pacific Rim and how I saw the trailer for that, and it's like great graphics, big monsters, big mecha, cool concept, unique story looking thing. But I know I'm going to walk into this and it's just going to be some B movie plot, and that's fine. I just want to see a giant robot punch a giant monster in the face. And then you get in there, and this thing actually has a plot, and that blew everybody's mind. And it was definitely more complex than Cowboys and Aliens. Guillermo del Toro put a little bit more thought into it than that. But at the same time, it wasn't meant to be analyzed too deeply. Now, I do agree with the criticism of the oversight of what would have been the most effective way to kill these kaijus as they were coming out of the breach. And if the sword was so powerful, then why wouldn't you just constantly have Jaegers on patrol around the breach and they could decapitate monsters right as they come out? But if they did that, the movie couldn't happen, as the pitch meeting guy says. But yeah, doing movies that are just good and fun and entertaining and not meant to be overanalyzed, it's become a lost art as we've entered the age of shared universes and trying to get audiences committed to a studio instead of just a movie or a cast of actors. Like, we don't want you just seeing a Tom Cruise movie. We don't just want you seeing a trilogy movie. We want you seeing every movie that might be remotely tangentially connected to this larger storyline that we're doing. Let me drop this in the chat right here. Cool. If you jump back to 35 minutes or so, I reply to this one. Thanks, Logan. Hopefully, in the wake of the pandemic and seeing the kind of havoc that's wreaked on the MCU, no, the pandemic isn't what killed the MCU. Bad writing and bad management post Endgame is what's killing the MCU. And I'm okay with it kind of stopping and dying out from here. I'm okay with Endgame being the end. I'd like to see the shared universe model kind of die out, and I'd rather studios just spend a little bit less money developing original standalone stories. Wayne's World cost like $20 million to make, $15 million to make, maybe, and it made $100 million. I wanted to say, it's why they speed greenlit a sequel and it wasn't as good. I tried watching Wayne's World recently, and I'm like, yeah, this is not for me. But it was the first of those, Two Dumb Idiot Friend movies that kind of started spinning off in the 90s, and then Dumb and Dumber came along, and we had we had a whole genre of that. Somebody texting me? No, more messages from my fellow Colts fans. Yeah, football stuff. Football's back. It's preseason football, but I don't care. I love the unscripted drama of the NFL. It doesn't have to follow a dramatic formula so much. It just has to play out and the chips fall where they may, unless of course the refs make a bad call, which would deprive Drew Brees of another ring and let Tom Brady get another easy one over the LA Rams of all teams. But I'm not going to revisit that discussion. Smaller budget, standalone stories that, heaven forbid, actually get filmed outside. How much of Hollywood just does all their filming inside square buildings with green screens? They're still entertaining movies, but I saw Endgame in 2019. I think later that year, I took my wife to see the Peanut Butter Falcon, that Shia LaBeouf movie with Dakota Johnson, and his name was Zach. I can't remember his last name, but he's an actor who has Down syndrome, and the character has Down syndrome. And they filmed that on site in I don't remember the name of the place, but it was in the North Carolina or something. It's where they do a lot of fishing and shrimping and crabbing and stuff. And it's like, man, this is beautiful. I ended up looking it up, and small independent film, great story, great acting, beautiful soundtrack, excellent locales. They filmed it all on site. I wish studios would take more risks with things like that, but I think they're too high on their own power, and they love the allure of a captive audience. But the only ones that really pulled that off in the last decade were Star Wars and Marvel, and Star Wars has largely sucked since Disney bought it, and Marvel, like I said, I think is done. But it's not too late for you to become a fan of the Dreadverse. My stories are going to be connected, but I'm not going to have it be where like you've got to read absolutely every single one. Like if I introduce a character from one story into another story, I'll do enough of a backstory to kind of introduce them. Just say, hey, this is so and so, and not be like they appeared in this one. It's more just like, oh, hey, here's this guy that I know, and he does this, and readers will be like, oh yeah, I know him from this other book. But I'm not going to make it all super dependent on like, oh, for me to understand this one story, I've got to read 30 others. I can't sit here and complain about Hollywood getting hung up on the shared universe model and then me turn around and commit the next decade of my writing life to that. Speaking of writing, I'm not doing it. I'm talking about movies. Yeah, boom, 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 boom. They follow the. No, wait. Spanish officer shows up. Hester shows up and lets them out. We're getting to the point in the outline where I stopped like hitting story beats and started just writing more dialogue, which I've noticed happens a lot when I write. I start writing more dialogue exchanges, and then I can just kind of put in the tags and the blocking and so on. In the next draft. You were right, Miss. The Hank chuckled to himself. Miss Hester, I think our Glinda is more surprised that I believed in the fates providing, as she so frequently encourages us to do. I suppose you only just managed to escape the soldier's gaze, soldier's eyes, when they rounded us up. Indeed, Mr. Morgan. I'm used to keeping my head down low. She turned the key in the lock and wrestled the bars open, at which point she went between the other guild members and carefully administered smelling salts one by one to revive them. It's already 6:45. Do 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 do. Friday Night Rights. Uh, Excuse me. Okay, so we got a transition here that I've got to write from, excuse me, from this scene to used to keep my head down low, steering key and lock, wrestled the bars open, at which point she went to the other guild members and carefully administered smelling salts one by one to revive them. Hank pulled himself to his feet and lent a hand to Glinda. She didn't take it. Fates indeed, she murmured. Digging the compass out of her pocket. Shall we see what they have in mind for our next step? All right, scene break here. They pushed farther into the jungle for the better part of half an hour, their clothes clinging to their bodies as they dripped with sweat. They'd been careful to relieve the Spanish of their canteens, being so precise. That's a stupid expression. Be careful with the Spanish of their canteens, making sure not to take the ones Hester had poisoned. But even those were light on water now, which seemed to simply run through them like they were seeds. Nice. That's a simile because it uses like or as. Shall we see what they have in mind for our next step? They push farther into the jungle. Yes. The sounds of battle punctuated peppered the afternoon sky, distant at times and uncomfortably close at others. When they reached the top of a large hill that was sparsely dotted with trees, they Captain Richmond signaled for them to stop. Up ahead, a regiment. They don't have the look of those Spanish men. These what pass for Federals now? Do, 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 do. Linda took cover behind some rather large fronds and looked out across the distance to the base of another hill, several hundred yards off. A dozen men were pushing or escorting. A dozen men were escorting a four-wheeled wagon with some kind of large firearm atop its chassis. This is where I pull out this heavy book that I need to draw a little bit more out of. It was like one of those bargain clearance books that they had at Barnes and Noble last summer. And I was like, this is going to be good. This will be good visual reference. You say small arms, but they've had things up to and including light automatic weapons. So I'm wondering what they mean by small arms. Does it just mean not a cannon that's on a tank? Gatling gun, model 1893, because this book takes place in 1898. Page 69. I'm going to guess that those were actually on a two-wheeled dolly. Dadgum. The Bulldog snub-nose revolvers. It was a smaller version of the Gatling gun, firing rifle caliber ammunition. Looks like this. This one right here. Yeah, I'm going to guess that if they had one in... Why would they use the 1868 model? Mechanical repeater, more complex than the Gardner gun. Each chamber was loaded in turn from the top-mounted drum, then moved into a position to be fired by turning the crank. A 5-barreled gun. Geez, that looks insane. The 1868 was a... Okay. 12.7 millimeter. 11.2 millimeter. 300 rounds per minute. Both of them could fire 300 rounds per minute. Range of 400 meters. Operation. Seems like the only main difference is caliber, although the 1893 model is about a third of the weight. Same cyclic rate, same feed magazine, same muzzle velocity, shorter barrel on the Bulldog model. Interesting. Multi-barrel gravity fed. This will work for what I want to do with it. But something that I need to look up to make sure that I get this right. What type of Gatling gun, Spanish-American War? SpanAmWar.com/Gatling gun. Okay, this one appears to be on a two-wheeled chassis. J.R. Gatling, posing with a Gatling gun in the Philippines. This doesn't look like the Bulldog model. This looks larger. First Gatling gun was built in 1862 in Indianapolis. 1865, weapon was patented. Generally 10 barrels. Mechanism automatically inserts round being fed from a vertical magazine mounted atop the guns. Barrels continue to revolve. Each barrel is cocked, fired, and the shell casing removed in one single revolution. The barrels are revolved through the use of a crank mounted on the weapon, so you've got to be able to turn that. Model 1895 being used by the U.S. Army in the Spanish-American War. The Army purchased 18 of these guns on May 20th, 1898. 31 more were delivered to the Army just over 2 weeks after the war ended. I'm going to drop this link in the chat. Thank you to whoever runs SpanAmWar.com. Okay, so we need to look at the 1895 model Gatling gun. Not that this book is a Western, but I like to be accurate with details. 4-gun battery of the model 1895 10-barrel guns in 30 caliber, which is not an insignificant size. Granted, it's not a 50, but 1885 is the round drum on top. I need the 1895. That's the 1877. Why can't I find a picture of the 1895 model? Holy crap. There we go. I'll just do... Show me an 1885. I want to see the 1895. Don't make me get on Pinterest. I'll do it. Armas de las Islas Filipinas. No, we're not looking for Philippines. That was a different war. Also in the 1800s. You're going to make me do it. You're going to make me get on Pinterest. Once upon a time, Captain Hook jacket. What the junk? 1895 Gatling gun. Okay, it looks like it's got a big something or other around it. Okay, so it's definitely pushed on a two-wheeled wagon. What do we got? 59 minutes. Geez, to see how these freaking popular channels are doing 4-hour live streams. Doesn't take long. We're escorting a two-wheeled wagon with some kind of large firearm atop its axle. We'll be the axle and not the chassis. This is San Juan Hill, but I don't think the guild would know that. Spanish cavalry back to artillery. What is that? I asked. Devil's Breath, which is a nickname that I've heard, but Gatling gun, Devil's Breath. Let's see when that term originated. Gatling laser. That must be a video game thing. The Devil's Breath, said Richmond, in equal parts awe and fear. Though that one looks to be a newer model than the ones I saw in the war. That's in 1895, said Hank. We should give them some space. About 400 meters of it, preferably. This is where the research comes in. It's about 400 meters of it, preferably. Follow the compass of Spanish artillery shell knocks the Gatling gun on the side. Before Linda could ask her next question, yet another Spanish artillery shell whistled down from the heavens and slammed into the hillside not far from the American soldiers and their Gatling gun. Oops. A Gatling gun. Looks to be new model Moses in the war. There was a time when I thought that Gatling meant I better shut down that Order 66 theme because that is not royalty free. It's a time when I thought that Gatling was some kind of verb, and so I thought that Gatling guns gattled you. I might have been 14 when that happened. So anyway, I think it's been, what has it been? It's been an hour. I'm going to go ahead and turn this off because I keep getting distracted with it. Larry Correa will appreciate your attention to historical and technical accuracy. Yeah, that is the aspiration. You can't expect to live that Larry life unless you do Larry things, right? People can complain about his fan service writing all he wants, but he knows his fans. He gives them what they want, and he lives on a mountain fortress. So goals. Anyway, Logan, my man, thank you for tuning into this one. It's 7:00. I'm going to cut the feed short. Why is Gamora? That is the correct answer. And we'll get this one up, and I'm going to dig into this manuscript in earnest now. But this is why it takes me forever to get anything done. For sure, man. Thank you for tuning in. This was fun. We'll see about getting some more here in the future. Have a fun night, brother. All right, wrapping it up. Thanks for tuning in, Logan. Anybody who's watching this afterward, appreciate it. I'm going to get this thing finished this weekend. I owe it to my listeners. Peace.